For the last 20 years, we have provided teaching, consulting, and coaching services in the lean and agile space. We completely understand why so many people say it does not work. The biggest reason for this perception is that most companies, claiming to be agile, suck at it. No wonder it has such a bad rep. Many organizations, and people in these organizations, don't understand the importance of the 12 Agile principles, and why they are more important than what you were taught on a 3 or 4 day Agile course that is supposed to make you an instant expert. And, even more important than what any of the Agile methods describes. So, let's first run through these principles at a very high level. This is important because the 12 principles are the backdrop of the rest of this conversation. Agile is about making sure customers are happy with what they get. That is first and foremost. If what you deliver is not valuable to customers, it really does not matter. What makes it difficult is that what is valuable today may not be valuable for customers tomorrow. It's a crazy time we live in. That implies that we need to be flexible enough to change tack frequently, to make sure that what we do continues to be the right thing, and we need to do this often. You will not know if it is the right thing if you cannot show customers results frequently and get feedback virtually daily. The second biggest stumbling block is that people, and here, specifically management, assumes that the organization can implement agile methods without changing the way the organization function, operate, or how the organization is managed and structured. If you don't create an environment in which agile will work, it won't. By virtue of how we work in Agile, project people need to be able to speak to customers and users frequently, to understand changing needs better. The team needs continuous feedback to ensure they are still on track. Customers and users also need to understand that project resources have limits, and can only do good work if they are not overworked. If the customer's needs change, so would the priorities of what is worked on. Everything can't be a priority number one. That is not realistic, something has got to give. That does not mean that performance measurements go out the door, they are just different. We now measure delivery success by the quality of outcomes that matters most and not against promises made 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, or even a month ago. Why? Because priorities change, and it's the customer who decides what these priorities are. Because delivery timescales are short and focused in Agile, we need to make sure that everyone has the skills necessary to make the delivery of value work. If the skills are not available, we need to get them or develop them first, and that has a knock-on effect on the delivery of value. If teams doing the project work understand how what they build will be used, they can design and build it better, once again reinforcing the need for frequent communication and feedback. Because teams need to deliver value soon, they should also stop doing work that adds little or no value, do enough to satisfy the value requirements, and don't waste time on busy work that adds no value. This now presupposes that the team knows what is valuable, and what is not, to both customers and users of the product or service. Once again, frequent and focused communication and feedback are necessary. As the team better understands what is valuable, it would become easier to unlock lots of value frequently. Part of this understanding is self-reflection and self-improvement, making sure that what they do and how they do things constantly becomes better, more focused, and more valuable. Okay, so that's the backdrop. We will now talk about the 12 things organizations need to do to succeed at being agile. But remember the 12 principles, this understanding will help a lot. So let's go. Stop doing agile, be agile. Far too many people think that just doing sprint planning, a daily scrum, and other things they learned on an agile course will bring agility. So here is the reality, it won't. Unless the beliefs about what work is, and how it should be done change, no amount of doing agile-like things will matter. The most important part of being agile is the willingness of organizations to change and be flexible. The reason for this fundamental flaw in most agile implementations, and we use the word implementation in parentheses here, is a general lack of understanding that Agile is a management philosophy first, that it requires radical behavioral change, specifically around how people manage, and secondly that Agile is diametrically opposed to Taylorism, and much of the last century's management thinking. This is a really big thing. If you believe in command and control, and in micromanaging people, don't attempt the use of Agile methods, you will fail. It just won't work for you. We would venture a guess that continuing down the Taylorist, last century management thinking track will result in organizational failure inevitably. If you are not Agile, you will not survive the first 3 decades of the 21st century. So, as you can see, that's not far in the future. Many predict that the 2030s will be a watershed decade on many fronts. That brings me to the next thing: if you don't want to change, don't. Don't set yourself up for failure. It would be better, for a while at least, to continue to work the way you did before. Maybe running into a brick wall is what is needed for someone to wake up and realize the change you resisted so long is unavoidable. Okay, but change is difficult, and changing the fundamental design of an organization is something that is super hard to do for industrial age organizations. Where do we start? Stop doing long-term detailed planning. I can hear you say, what? Don't do long-term planning? No, I said detailed long-term planning. You have to plan for the future, but just enough to have a guiding path toward your organization's future. Detailed, long-term planning is in any case a futile exercise these days. Everything is changing too fast to reliably predict what detailed actions should be taken far into the future. Agile proposes that you do detailed planning just before you take action. At least then what you know at that time is current and relevant. I know you are skeptical right now. But let me ask you a question. How many of the long-term projects your organization did in the last few years have worked out as planned? Did you finish on time? Were the features what you needed, or did you have to deal a lot with scope creep and new requirements to make it work? Did you finish within budget? Or, put another way, as a consumer, would you buy a cell phone with features that were in vogue 2 years ago and not the latest and greatest features available right now? Will you be prepared to pay top dollar for it? So, why should your customers? Letting go of long-term, detailed plans is probably one of the most difficult things in very hierarchical and Taylorist organizations to do. The delusion of being able to control future outcomes based on what we know now. But once you understand it is an illusion, it is one of the easiest and least threatening things to stop doing, right off the bat. Here is reality check number 2. The role of management in the organization needs to change. When Frederick Taylor devised his scientific management principles, and when Henry Ford implemented them to good effect, the workforce were largely illiterate or semi-literate. Supervision was a key success criterion. What about today? What about when working with a nearly 90% workforce that could be considered knowledge workers? Would that 1920s management style work with knowledge workers? If you said yes, you are in denial. Treat knowledge workers like factory workers, and they will all leave. The good ones will leave first, leaving you with those who have no prospects anywhere else. If that does not scare you, I don't know what will. The good news is that management is vital in agile environments, but managers have to learn new skills because their role has changed. The manager of the 21st century is a coach, a mentor, and a teacher. You still need to technically know your stuff to be able to teach other people, but much more importantly, you need to learn how to coach and mentor employees. And even the way you teach is different in agile organizations. Teaching is not classroom teaching. It is more intimate and mostly one-on-one. You teach by showing, letting employees try out what they learned, and if it goes wrong, allowing them to figure it out by themselves first, and then with your input and guidance, they can explore why it did not work and then you jointly look for the solution, combining your years of experience and their newly acquired knowledge about the best way to do it now. As a manager, you have to become a servant leader if you want to remain relevant and valuable to the organization. That is quite a mind shift. And that is quite a lot of new skills you will have to acquire. But that alone is not enough. You have to work on your EQ, show trust first in your employees' ability, showing them that it's okay to learn from mistakes, and then employees will in turn trust you, to help them be the best they can. A central theme in Agile is that the people closest to the work being done plan and manage what gets done, and how they will do it, and as a consequence, take responsibility and accountability for their decisions. So once again, no micromanaging in Agile. The third most difficult thing in Agile is for customers to realize that change happens too frequently for project teams to stick to long-term commitments. This is the flip side of the welcome change at any time principle. Because we welcome change at any time, we will change direction, add new features, and do new things. However, without new and more resources, some other work already on the list of things to do will necessarily have to be deprioritized. That is why there is no long-term plan of action, no fixed deliverable commitments beforehand, only the promise to always work on what is most important now. So every time a new requirement emerges, it needs to be put in order of priority. If it is more important to something already on the list, it means that all of those somethings already on the list, as a consequence, become less important. Agile is not some form of higher magic that can make more happen sooner with the same resources. Once again, something has got to give. That brings us to the selling ice cream bit. Yes, because Agile is not magic. From time to time you will displease someone for the benefit of the greater organization or greater good. The natural instinct of managers in this scenario is to intervene and ask the team to do a bit for customer X, while they work on the work for customer Y. This is a bad idea for two reasons: you break the self-management rule of Agile, and secondly, you insist that people multitask. No one can multitask, it's a scientific fact backed up by numerous studies. All that happens when people multitask is that the quality of all deliverables suffers, and what's worse, it takes longer to even deliver substandard work. When you task switch, quite a bit of time is spent on reorientation and picking up where you let off. When you start something, get it done. Finish it. Over time, it will help the team to deliver more value and better quality of work. Don't allow customers to ask when stuff that is not at the top of the list will be done. The answer is, when it's in the best interest of the organization to work on it. As long as there is more important stuff on the list, we don't know, and frankly, we don't care. Also, don't ask when the project will finish. The answer is never. As long as new and valuable requirements are unearthed, we will keep on doing the stuff that adds more value. I think some of you can immediately spot the issue here. What about the budget? Surely that must be finite? And once again, the answer will first make you shudder and then recoil. No, it's not finite. Immediately I hear you say, but surely we can't keep spending money on something. At some stage the cost will supersede the value. Correct, but as long as what we do costs less than the value created, why stop? Asking when is the wrong question in Agile. You are using the wrong metric, and incidentally, it was always the wrong metric. The correct question is, how much value was added? By asking that question, project type work will never overrun the budget, because as long as there is more value to be created than what is consumed, the work is valuable. That brings us to the second last difficult thing organizations need to get right. If you start a piece of work, ensure you have all the skills in the team to finish it. That often means working in cross-functional teams, where the manager of the resource all of a sudden has zero say in what they do on a day-to-day basis. The only effective way we have seen, changing the behavior of managers in this regard, is to ensure that a substantial part of their performance evaluation focuses on how well their team supports other teams and works on projects that are not their primary focus. When I say substantial, I mean substantial. More than 50% of performance metrics should focus on agile behaviors and results. Peter Drucker said, "What gets measured, gets done." Success in Agile depends on everyone in the organization doing what needs to be done to succeed. The last item is most probably a bit more long-term. Redesign the organization to be product-focused rather than thinking about functional silos. That means teams, units, and departments will no longer be funded, only products will, and teams will get the funding to do what needs to be done because they help to make and maintain awesome products. That adds lots of value to customers. I said 12 things, and the 12 I mentioned are the most important ones to our minds. Many Agile consultants and coaches will fear to tread where we did, by naming these 12. But, we believe it's better for you to know what you need to do, so that you can be an example that others can look at and say, Agile works awesomely. Much of what we say is often not said, not because it's not true or not known. It is rather because vested interests would want to keep on trying without rocking the boat too much. Probably with the hope that maybe, someday, you will get it right, and in the meantime, they have an income stream. The reality is, however, that if you are not prepared to do some difficult things, you won't get the true benefits Agile promises. You must be realistic, and understand what it takes to make Agile work for you. So here is a bonus, call it number 13 if you want, that will serve you in good stead. And this one is a favorite of organizations who want to be able to say they are Agile, without doing the work, and taking the associated pain, to eventually see the gain. Don't, for the love of chocolate, use methods that call themselves Agile but are not. How would you know? If they don't adhere to all 12 principles, it's not Agile. They often promote the idea of longer-term pre-planning, we call it doing waterfall in sprints. They don't believe in the principle of true self-managed teams. They try to scale things, in an attempt to please everyone, and frequently promote multitasking. If you see the words, release, management decisions, forward planning, and team leader, in any of the language used in the method, stay away. It's probably not a true Agile method. And it's not safe to use if you want to truly be Agile. Becoming Agile is hard. It will be painful, and we have not seen anyone that was able to do this successfully with a medium or large organization in less than 2 years. Timescales like that mean that unwavering executive support is required. Required to push through and make it work. But if you do, the rewards are so worthwhile. Your customers will love you. People will love to work at your organization. You will be more productive and profitable as a result. But remember, no pain, no gain. Get yourself a good coach, invest in upskilling people, and start making people's work more meaningful right off the bat. We can obviously help and would be honored to help if asked. Although we are straight talkers, it doesn't mean that we are insensitive to the pain that goes with the commitment to be Agile. We will help you navigate difficult waters, in the only way that organizational change sticks, one step at a time. Sometimes pushing you, and even sometimes holding you back, when experience has taught us that going too fast is not advisable. We can teach you and your people, and help you get an internationally accredited certification in Agile Scrum. We can also coach and guide you and hold your and your team's hands as you navigate unknown waters.